When I was a kid, we didn't have a lot. I grew up pretty poor. My dad worked real hard at an aviation parts shop. My mom, stay-at-home mom. Of course, you didn't know you're poor, you didn't worry about it. But we didn't have a lot of pleasantries or little extras like ice cream or, candies or anything like that. Dessert was basically a piece of bread when Dad got paid extra. So we had a little bit of an interesting time. But the one thing I remember in my childhood was that we never got to buy the fancy stuff. We didn't buy milk, we bought the powdered milk. And we didn't buy orange juice, we bought Tang. Tang is yummy. At least I thought so. I grew up on the stuff. We got it for bulk, for mega cheap. And until I actually tried orange juice, it was the consummate citric meal for me. So imagine my surprise when I went to the store the other day and found out it comes in gardens. Let's check the ingredients.
Okay, let's take a look at what's inside Tang Garden. First, you have this monochromatic but definitely detailed main board. This is where the action will take place. And you have a starting tile that's 2 by 2 that you can have double-sided. It's kind of your choice which way you want to place it. You also have these special tokens that are configured to be in different spots on the board based on whether you're playing a 2-player game, 3-player game, or 4-player game. They have 2 subtle distinctions. This is a landscape looking token. That'll be important later. And this is a sort of a city view, a more close-in view. You also have 4 pillared stacks of different tiles. These are the meat of the game as far as laying out your map. You will find that these have a variety of different configurations. What happens is you have the water track, you have the dirt track, or the rock track really, and then you have the greenery track, and then you have a sort of a mix it all up track that has various and sundry tiles themselves, and when the game starts, laying those tiles is going to be one of the core facets of the game. Beyond that, every player is going to get their own board, nice thick indented sturdy boards, and you're going to have your status levels or your advancement levels for each of the 3 terrain types: water, greenery, and rock. You also have 4 one-use tiles. These are used once per game at pivotal times to give you a slight nudge of a bonus in a given direction. It varies from being able to have decoration cards, to draw extra tiles, to move your dudes or dudettes in different ways. Again, explained later. You also have decoration cards. Now, what do these decoration cards do? These are what you'll draw during the game, in anywhere from 2 to more. And when you draw them, they map to one of the decorations that comes in the game. And that is the section over here. Note that you have pavilions, trees, bridges, and a variety of small scale decorations. Each of these has value in that as you place it on tiles in their designated locations, you will accrue points in a different way based on how you configure them and what the objectives are that you personally have each turn. Then we get into the last 2 sections. You have cards. These are character cards. There's a card for each of the characters. Most of them have abilities that activate as you play. This is the top part. And many of the abilities have end-game scoring parameters that tell you how you will score for these at the end of the game. So you have a dual-fold purpose. Each one has a corresponding color-coded character creation conjuration here. Oh, sorry. Alright, and they map up pretty well. You'll see those later. And finally, you have landscape tiles. You have big landscape tiles. Those map to the tokens that have the large panoramas, and you have the smaller tokens. They fit here on the 4 sides of the boards. You can see big landscape in the background, and then sort of the close-up landscape. Once again, you will be scoring based on how you set up those landscape tiles over the course of the game. And finally, second to finally, you have money. This is standard fare, 1, 5, 10s, and 20s, and the ever-loving pizza box-sized manual of sorts. So you'll find, decoration. And covers a lot of things, has a lot of pictures, A lot of negative space, of course, and such. But, yeah, we'll get into that later. If you are going to play this game and you don't have the eyes of an eagle or a hawk, or at least you don't get to, go to space observatory and aim the telescope over to your map board, you will want one of these that breaks down all of the characters in the game and what their special abilities are to spare you from having to remember the iconography. And this I got off of Board Game Geek. Like I said, I highly recommend it. It's pretty valuable. That's it. That's everything that comes in the box. Now let's start with the first turn. Okay, let's begin play. Each player is given a starting character. In my case, I got the Architect. Oh, that over there. The Architect gives me a boost. I get to move my greenery right away, straight away over. It also has a special ability where if I place a pavilion or a bridge down, I'm going to get 2 spending coins, victory points. They're the same thing. Over here, I have the Empress. The Empress has a similar situation where if you place a flower of some sort as a decoration onto the map, she too will get 2 victory points. She also, if she's on the map, and this is the bottom part that matters, if she's on the map, staring in a direction, she's going to get 9 points at the end of the game, unless she's staring at the Empress or the Emperor, in which case she loses 3 points for each. So I guess, or not the Empress, the Emperor, the Emperor and one of the other characters, which will be made manifest when I... Yeah, the lady. Emperor or lady, so I'm sure there's a backstory to that. We'll go with it. She's blue, so we start off heading up. Cool. On your turn, there are 2 actions you can take, 2 primary actions that you will take on your turn. One is you're going to build the garden. Building the garden is taking one of the tiles, and we start with all of them face up, and placing it somewhere that is appropriate onto the game board. The other action you can do is to decorate the garden, and that involves taking these cards, which give you opportunities to place certain decor out in their own appropriate spaces onto the game board. So, with that, let's just go with the game flow. On your turn, I'm going to do a build the garden. Look at that. Now you'll notice there are some places, some iconography where different icons will say what can be built in that location. You can put rock formations here, for example. You can put a character here. You can put a bridge here. That's pretty cool. And you can put something that's green here, a tree, a lily pad, Kermit, whatever. In this case, I'm taking a tile and I'm looking at it of all the ones that I could choose from. I'm going to pick this one. It has 4 sides, it has walkways, and it has water. I can't place it anywhere that's illegal. I can't have half a pond. I can't have this butted up. That won't work, but I can place it here. Look at that. Magical, magical. Now that I've done this, whatever area I've crossed here, blue, I'm going to get to add to my blue power. Water power for the win. And that's it. When I'm done with that, then there are other... And I figured out what the scoring is. The scoring was very simple for this. Then I will figure out if I need to refresh tiles. If there's ever just one tile visible, everything gets flipped up. So right now that's not happening. So now we move over to player 2. Player 2 has 3 out of 4 options if they want to also build the garden, or they could try decorating, and they're going to do that. You get 2 cards plus 1 card for any unexposed card or unexposed tile. So basically there's 3 visible, 1 invisible. So we have the birds, we have the bees, we have the trees. I'm kidding. We have birds. So if you wanted to place a bird down, you could. If you wanted to place a bridge down, you can. That's just flat up 2 points at the end of the game. And if you want to place a tree, you can do that. The more trees of different kinds that you place, the more points you're going to get at the end of the game. Birds are worth nothing unless you can also have a matching fish. Because birds and fish, that's... seems so right. So what am I going to do? My options are limited. Here tells me iconography iconographically, where you can place it. I can place a bird token here. I can place a moat token here. I can place a tree here. And that's my options. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to place, you know what, we're going to do a tree. Let's do a tree. I'm going to take a pine tree. I'm going to place my pine tree right there. All right. Already I've scored 1 point for the end of the game, and these are discarded. And now, one of the other things is when you decorate, then you refresh all the tiles. The whole point is there's just certain triggers that keep the tiles flowing. The tile must flow. And so there we go. Now we're going to go back to our player again and decide if we're going to place again or not. Now right now we are at a situation where we could place a tile, and we're going to do that. Now I'm going to show you this. I place a tile here. If I place a tile here, they have to be adjacent to some other tile. I can't just put them out in nowhere. I don't really have anything connecting terrain-wise other than this pathway, and I get a victory point for each pathway that I cross. Plus, I have I've kicked this out, and this is a landscape tile. So what I do is I place it here because that could be valuable later. I then go over here and look at these big tiles, and I decide which one I want to use. What matters is the artwork is beautiful for looking at, but what matters are the icons on the top right, because what your characters are staring at in their direction at the end of the game is usually how they get points. Now I have this character which says that if the architect, if he's able to see, well, he has a different one. His is different. Yeah, construction landscape in sight. So he's going to have to look at the construction landscape in sight. So looking at that icon, if you can find something with that icon in a big landscape, that might be pretty cool. In this case, we're not going to worry about it. We're just going to take it and we're going to place it here. There we go. All right. And that is that. That is the end of our turn. And then we're going to go back to our other player. The Empress is interested in something a little more powerful than that. She'd like to actually get some tiles on the board, but in a way that's going to help her be able to place her figure. She'd love to complete green. So what we're going to do is this. Note this. This can go here. Nope, can't. But it can go here. And it can displace. There we go. Displaces this token. So why is this cool? One side is a tile pass, so she just gets a victory point. Rock on, Empress. But more importantly, this is a completely self-contained greenery. So guess what it gets? Well, bump the green. Didn't even have to work on tiles. And she has a small landscape, which she's going to put over here, and then grab one of these guys and place it wherever she wants, say here. Look at that. We're building beautiful vistas. Beautiful vistas. We'll be beautiful butterflies. Okay, and that's the end of her turn, unless she wants to do anything more. She does not. She'd love to get a stone finished, but she can't. Certain areas don't. Okay, so that's it. Now we go over here, and now we're going to do decor. So we're going to do a decoration. So always get 2 cards. Plus, we have 2 unshown tiles, so that's 2 more cards. So this basically, it's looking for opportunities to get as many options as possible, because a lot of these decorations need to be in sets in order to score maximum points. All right. Ooh, the pavilion. The pavilion requires a rock to do it. We're going to do that. I like that. Yeah. Do we like that one? Yes. The pavilion requires a rock, and 2 tiles. Let's do willow. Let's do willow tree. Let's do that. So we're going to take the willow, We're going to find the willow tree here. We're going to put it in the matching shape, which is the green icon. There we go. Look at that. We've already built up over time. And now we too have a point. Now we're going to do something different to show you. There is an option to take 2 cards using our one-time bonus, and I'm going to use that now. And I'm also going to place Wisteria. Nope, I'm not. You know why? There's no place on the board for it, or else we could have. Alright, that's done. And now, back to the Empress. The Empress has ideas. So, we're going to have her also, actually, whenever you do a decoration, everything gets flipped up. So she has more options than she thought. We'd love to be able to, again, complete a tile with... Yeah, we can't do that. I wish. We're still looking to get the stone tile, because she'd like to level up and get another character, but she's a ways away from that yet. As you go across, once all 3 of your tokens are across to this next icon, then you can choose a different character, which I need to flip 2 over there. And then one of them goes out on the board, and the other one stays as your active character. So it's an intriguing mechanism. So we're going to go here, and we're going to... No, that's not going to work. We are... Ooh, what about here? We do... Yes, let's do that. What the heck, why not? We're going to place that there. Once again, we've discomfited the smaller landscape, so we put that over there. And grab a small landscape. This one. Alright, I'm going to set that there. See how it forms into beautiful landscapes over time? See how it forms into beautiful landscapes over time? Especially if you can actually fit them in the slot correctly. Easier done than said. Alright, and so we've done that. We finished that up, and now it's on to the next player's turn. And we are still doing tile laying. We'd love to advance our units a little bit, but instead we're going to go ahead and no, we're going to take this. What the heck? We're going to do this. This might help us later. We can place this in. This is not valid because stone and paths aren't going to work. But we can, and we can't even put there. We're kind of in a bind. So we're just going to place it there. That gives me 1 coin. So look at that. I'm already 2 coins into it. And then yeah, that's basically my happiness. There we go. Nothing else to do, nothing else to change. Okay, so back up to us, and we could look for a decoration now and get a lot of cards as an option, because we'd get 2 cards plus 2 for these unexposed tile sections. We're going to do that, so we're going to flip that over. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have bridges, we have pavilions. You know what? Now we can place we're going to place a pavilion. We're going to take that, set it here, and then we're going to take one of these awesome pavilions, and look, we can put it right there. Cool. There. Our garden is becoming more beautiful. At the end of the game, whoever has the most pavilions cards that they've laid down is going to get 12 victory points, not an untidy sum. In the second place, we'll get 6. If there's a tie, you just split 18, so 9 for each in a 2-player game. All right, so we've done that. We've created the decoration. We don't want to use our special bonus to... Or do we? Do we? Yes, we do. We're going to use the special card 1 time. Once again, the only way that you can ever get these to flip back over is if you take 4 in a 2-player game, 3 in a 3 or 4-player game of these tokens, and you can turn them in to be able to flip 1 over. But for the most part, count on not being able to do these more than once a game as a general rule. And then we can place that there. Look at that. More and more. I'm going to go ahead and advance a bit because you don't need to watch a full playthrough. I'm going to advance to later in the game and show you what it's like once you have more of a full map and once you have some characters out on the board. Okay, we've advanced a bit farther in the game. So now it's time to show you a couple concepts that won't instantly be available at the start of the game. First off, it is player one's turn. Notice they have two characters. We're going to show how that's done. First off, we have a tile to take. We're going to take this tile. That's what we're going to do, and we're going to place it here. Now there's a couple things. This is a wild card, so you can always put this side and it will connect with any other side without, so you can always use that to connect one side to another side. So if you didn't have a sidewalk, for example, that counts, but you don't get any points for it. So you can use it to help place and sort of unblock yourself, but that's about it. Notice that we have moved our rock terrain over, plus we've now completely filled in this entire rock structure. Doing so gives us an extra. And that unlocks something else. We are now past the point where all three of our tokens, the blue, the green, and the yellow, are now at or past this icon. That means we are now able to influence a character. So we look up here and we go, what character do I want? We're going to grab the lady. But we also have to ask ourselves, we can only have one of these active at a time. So we have to decide which of these we're going to put on the board. If we put him on the board, we're going to want to put him in a way where he is staring at any of the landscapes that have that icon. But he is giving us a benefit right now in real time, whereas lady, if placed at the end of the game, if she's staring at something in the night or something in the daytime, she's going to get 6 points for each. So we're going to go ahead and place her. Where are we going to place her? We need to find just the right spot. So any of these spots here. However, we also have a benefit where at the end, that facing is important. You need to face them just right. If I faced her this way, this is what she'd be staring at the end of the game. If I faced her this way, this is what she'd be staring at the end of the game. And look what she's staring at. Already we can see that she's going to get 6 points as it stays there. Oh, let me flip her around. There you go. Umbrella to the back. The other advantage is that you're going to get points for each decoration she can see from here through her line of sight directly along this row. So that's some decent points for her. And so we have placed that character, and it is now available for us and will be scored at the end of the game. Any deployed characters will have their own sort of scoring mechanism. Some of them care about the landscape, the far distant landscape, and some of them care about what's in their line of sight. Line of sight here is not your typical wargame line of sight. It basically means whatever direction a character is placed and facing, from that way forward, you count everything along the column. And that's how that goes. Next, we are done. We did our job. We refresh in case someone else wants to grab one. Ooh, the Emperor. And then we go to our good friend here. Now we could do the same thing right now. You'll notice that she is also almost ready to be able to get a third character, and so the same thing would follow. She could, there we have, yes, this is another example right there. Look at that. Put that in there, and guess what? It connects 2 green sides and a coin. So that's kind of a nice little bonus. So there, 2 green, look at that. And 2 bonus points. So not everything is a new character. Sometimes it's bonus points. And so that's done. And there you go. And finally, the game continues on until either one of these decks is depleted, or until there are 3 or less of these tokens available left on the board. When that happens, everybody finishes their round such that everyone has the same number of turns, and then you do scoring. Scoring at this point basically is just running down the list and looking for how you did with various accomplished tasks. So for example, you'd go through and go, okay, well, I have birds and fish. 2 of those is 6 points, so you grab yourself 6 points. Pavilion, you check that and go, did I have the most? Nope, it was equal, so everybody gets 9 points apiece since it's a 2-player game. Magnolias and trees, 2 trees is 4 points. 4 points for that, and everybody scores out their cards. Then you do the coins from the characters. First off, you take each character that's deployed. For example, our poet is here and staring this way, and so she's going to get 1 point for the decoration here, and she's going to get 2 points, up to 10 points, for water every water space, including her own. So 2, 4, 6 points for that. Same thing over here. Assume we've scored all those. We have the architect, 3 points. So the architect is the yellow here. He's going to get 1, 2 points for those things he's staring at, and another 3 points for that icon there. So that's a bunch of points for it. And finally, the lady, again, is she staring? She has 1, 2 points for these decorations as she's staring out to them. And, yep, there it is. There's nighttime. She gets 6 points for that. And that's it. That's how you score. Whoever has the most coins at the end of the game is declared the winner. And that's it. Let's get to my final thoughts.
All right, let's talk about my final thoughts on Tang Garden. As always, we do the cons, then the pros, then the summary. There's an old saying, never put the cart before the horse. And in this case, I think it's never put the art before the horse. By that I mean, I had some concerns because this was so art intensive and such an art focus during all of its Kickstarter that there would be an inclination to get caught up in the visuals of the game, which are in this case beautiful. And instead having it sort of starve the attention away from core gameplay that this beautiful game is meant to be the presentation layer for. I found that my fears in this regard were mostly unfounded in the core gameplay scape of things, but there are marked signs of usability issues that kind of take a hit because of the emphasis on art over maybe usability. Let me explain some things. The iconography is rough. It's even though it's generally consistent, it's obtuse in relaying the icon's meaning to actual meaning that resonates with me. Now, even with just 12 character cards, for instance, there was a general need to reread the icon's intent and look it up in the pizza box manual. Now, I'm no stranger to icons. I've played Seven Wonders, San Juan, I played Race for the Galaxy, and all of those were very heavy in the iconography to relay intent. The only game that was even close to this that was irksome was Roma, which when Roma 2 came out solved it by actually having the text on the cards. It's a layer of abstraction that just simplifies trying to get the game to the table for all types of gamers, including ones that like to just play casual games, of which many would be interested based on just taking a glance at this game alone. It's the first game I've ever considered actually making my own separate cards that just put the text on the card itself instead of trying to ascertain what's going on. The icons are tiny. And now, as a segment of the populace that's growing older with older eyes, this is not applicable to everyone. But I found that the iconography was tiny. And on the landscapes, on the various places, they help out in doing color coding so that if you have a character that's like, this color of landscapes, of icon on this landscape matters, that helps. No lie on that. It helps, but it's still not optimal. And the landscape slots are clever, but because they go on all 4 sides of the board, there's a bit of rubbernecking as you're trying to remember how you're placing these positionally. That is, I could do without that, but I understand why they did it. Again, they wanted the presentation to be king, and king it is. The rulebook is not horrid. It's not superlatively helpful either in places. It's in how it's organized. I wouldn't weigh it as either a detriment or a benefit. I could definitely have appreciated a little more a little different organizational structure. As an aside, the game uses terms kind of out of place. One of which is line of sight, which if you're a war gamer or a strategy gamer of any kind, line of sight is a different meaning in a different context than this. This is basically character facing every tile directly in front of it, which is technically a line of sight, but then it confuses things by also having ways that you score points by having, if you're in view of these these distant landscapes, and that's like, there's some confusion there. Fortunately, it's easy because the game is easy. It's so easy to get over. It's just if you're used to line of sight being a lot more rules, like this is kind of a quirk of like, okay, I get it, but I can't think of a better name, so rock on, go with it. But that's it. Let's go to the pros. The artwork presentation is not going to be a surprise. It is one of the finest displays of exquisite artistic prowess I've ever seen in years in a game. There's no lying about that. When you are playing this game, you are painting a landscape on your table and populating it full of breathtaking vistas and wonderfully ornate decorations. It is consistently high quality art across all components. There are no dud sections at all. End-to-end, art definitely took a front seat. Character facing, I like the character facing aspects, even though I've sort of griped a couple things about it. I do like that adds a little extra complexity. That's fine. No worries. It's once you understand the underlying rules, it makes more sense. And I do like the directions. I'm going to paint my figures so that it's a little easier to tell front and back, because sometimes you're like, if they're gray, you're like, is that the front part, or is that his nose or his ponytail? So anyway, something to think about that. I wasn't sure about the tile laying at first. This isn't a simple match the sides to the other landscapes, which is fine. I'm actually okay with additional complexity. There are exceptions to the rules of where you place and certain wildcard tiles and sides of wildcard tiles and stuff. And I understand that some of that exists to kind of help it so you don't get stuck in situations where you're just starved of the ability to add to your map. But it doesn't take away from the fact that I ended up liking it. It's far easier to just play the rules out than to describe how to play the rules out when it comes to tiling. The other thing is I like the multipliers. Got used to those. It's sort of like pinball multipliers. Like, I place my rock here. I've got a rock edge. That's a coin. Ooh, plus I completed this formation. That's a coin. Kind of wish. I mean, the thing is, you can build these large, like 3 or 4 tile, like rock structures, and they're still only worth 1. It's kind of like, I know there's probably a reason why you couldn't go, hey, you get a point for each one it adds, but then that's the Carcassonne talking again. The other time, the one shots, I don't like games. I don't like the element in games where you have one-shot tiles or one-shot opportunities. That's just a me thing. That's a quirk of mine. I actually see that manifesting itself in computer games too, where if I have a consumable or I have something that isn't consumable, I will always take what isn't consumable, even if it's not quite as good as what is consumable. I just personally hate timed effects and consumable things, just because I'm the timid guy that's like, oh, if I use it now, what if I need it later kind of crap. I buy into that, and it's just something where, look, I would rather have a slightly more difficult time than to deal with consumables. I just like it. I just don't like the housekeeping and stuff. The one-shots feel like that to me. Like, I don't know exactly when to use them, and I don't really always use them that well. But timing is critical here, and the beauty of this and why it works well here is because the game is not long enough where you're going to miss it too often. Usually, the opportunities that manifest themselves that say, this is a good time to use this one off, it's usually very clear, and usually the game doesn't last long enough that you're like, oh, if I'd only used that an hour ago, that isn't a problem, and that helps make it so the one shots are really not. I mean, they're really perfectly kind of tuned to how long the game goes. Plus, you always have the opportunity, if you get for the tiles that let you place landscapes for those little tokens of a kind, you can always, well, in 2 to 4 players, and only 3 in 3 or 2 players. Sorry, if you have 4 of those. Select 4, you can flip one of your one-timers back up and use it again. In a 4-player game, in a 3-player game, you can collect 3. In a 2-player game, you have to collect 4 because you can collect more easily. But that's one way to get the one-shots out of there and not have to worry about them. Hit or miss, from the game perspective, is kind of the landscape panorama. By that I mean you have this sort of like, I'm building up these landscapes. I've got these big landscapes in the background and these smaller landscapes to kind of give you that 3-dimensional effect. I really like that, even though I kind of harped on the fact that it's a little bit like clunky to try to see around. I really like the fact that you're building these contiguous panoramas. It's been done in other games, Familia and a few others that kind of try to like string together sort of like your layout and stuff, and they all do it, but it's not an essential core gameplay element the way it is here. And I think that's really cool, and I'm glad to see that. Finally, I like the tactical feel of this game. You can't make grand plans. You can't plan 7, 8 turns ahead. You can only make grand horticultural inroads into the relative unknown that is the turn you're taking now. For example, what decor? I don't know what decor is going to show up if I take the chance to flip the cards. I don't know when my opponent's going to use a one-timer to sort of like boost a couple extra ways to. I don't know if I lay a tile, should I lay a tile or decor? I don't know what's under the tiles, so maybe if I lay a tile, I could give my opponent an opportunity. All these things are just relative unknowns, little piece pockets of the unknown. So when it's my turn, it's really just what's the best thing to do right now that gives me the coolest looking garden. Not a hard thing. There are no demeritive choices here where you're going to find yourself going, oh man, you might not be able to advance farther, but you're also not going to basically shoot yourself in the foot. You're not in a garden this beautiful. So conclusions. One of the reasons I really like this game is because as a kid, one of my highlights for a couple of years, we would go up to Victoria, BC to the Bouchard Gardens. I'm not a gardening guy. I'm not even, I barely have the strength to mow my lawn and feel good about it. But those gardens, I still remember in my mind, just the grand gardens and spending all day and into the evening, and then the lights would come on and the smells and the sounds of this just gorgeous, huge, epic, hundreds of acres garden. And so I really like the idea. I felt kind of like that. This kind of helps. It's a little vision of being able to build this garden and to feel really good when you're done. There's no lie. This game had phases for me. Phase 1 was initially putting the game and the pieces together, and that felt great. Phase 2 was looking at the rule book and reading up on the actual gameplay and going, this is strangely presented. I don't know if I want to dive into this right now. So I didn't, and I took a couple months off. Phase 3 was setting it up and bulling through the rules and saying, okay, love the artwork. And then phase 4 came, and that was where I put a few games under my belt. 2, 3, and 4 player. The solo just didn't interest me that much, which is a surprise for me. And then I started to understand that there is a lot going on with this game that's not too much over the way of complicated, but also isn't so simplistic that it's really just a deciduous tile matching game. So I like this game. By the time I got to phase 4, I finally felt enough joy to be able to tell myself, keep this. It brings you joy after every session, especially when you look at the table and see how beautiful it looks. It's not necessarily because of the core gameplay that I feel this way, or even that it tells any sort of particular story, but it's because of the never disappointing landscapes that form organically over time as you play. I just like it. It's visceral. It's aesthetic. It pleases me. The game is not necessarily for everybody. In some ways, I feel like it fits in the middle. It's a pop-up fly ball where it's just out of the comfortable reach of your shortstop, and it's not quite to the comfortable reach of your left fielder, but it's still worth catching. But you'll need to understand that either way you'll need to reach a bit further, than than you might expect for someone in either camp, either extreme of the camps. Its content is solid. If you're content, let me put it this way, if you're content to derive joy from situational landscaping, if you're content to have a life goal of being an exterior decorator, if you have the eyes of an eagle to handle the small kind of footprint of the iconography, if you want a game that possesses more layers than it first appears, but not less layers than it last appears, or if you adore rich, thematic, exquisite, viscerally three-dimensional artwork combined with a decent, if not noteworthy, game beneath the vibrancy of the initial contact with said artwork, then Tang Garden is worthy of your attention. So on that note, Tangs again, and we'll see you next time on Harebrained Games.